Good morning from sacred space at Titania's realm. It's Boxing Day, Friday the 26th of December 2025, and the time is 9:23 a.m. Good morning, Boker Tov, Bon Matin, Guten Morgen. I've been up since 6, can you tell? Bright and bushy-eyed today. Not really bushy-eyed though. I'm still a bit tired. But anyway, I'm up and at 'em. I'm dressed. I'm happening in a far-out way. And my intention was to drive down to Capalaba Produce to pick up food for the birdies, the wild ones and my birds, but I don't know if I can be bothered today. They're open. I checked. Maybe I could go later on, but it just feels all too much really. It's hot and it's a bit cooler today, but it's been so hot that we're all a bit wrung out like dirty old dish rags. It's not a very nice analogy, is it? I had a very intense dream again this morning, which I did post on Facebook. I didn't withhold it like yesterday's trauma dream. It was a bit unusual. I dreamt of Daniel Craig, who played James Bond, and the weird thing is I haven't even seen that movie. I haven't watched the last 5 or 6 James Bond movies. I think I stopped watching them after Sean Connery. Oh no, there might have been 1 or 2 after him. But it's odd that I dreamed of that man. I don't know him in real life, and I had to Google him. I was writing the dream out and I was like, I could see his features, but I didn't know I knew he played James Bond, but I didn't know his actual name. Anyway, when I came to Google him, he's married. And he was not being sleazy with me in the dream, but he was there to find out what I was doing. I had some date coming and I was in a state of semi-hysteria as I get when I actually date men, ironically. Well, there's a long history of abuse, isn't there? So it's hard to open up and love for anyone. So in the dream, Mr. Daniel Craig of James Bond fame was mentoring me and kind of talking me through the process. And then in the dream, the date that happened to be this short, Jewish, neurotic, nervous man who said his name was Simon Hayward, but I realised later that was a character in a story I read recently. That's why I've come up with that name. It was odd. But anyway, I looked at this man. I don't know him. I don't think I've met him in real life. And anyway, he arrived. I haven't met either of them in real life. Anyway, the date, this Jewish guy that arrived very early. And so in the dream, I'm freaking out because my hair's all oily and I haven't had a chance to wash it. And somehow Mr. Craig is in my dream, like going, don't worry, you go and have a shower, I'll talk to him and settle him in. And it was the oddest thing. He was functioning almost like a fairy godfather helping me with my love life. It was such an odd dream. Anyway, it gets sort of more convoluted and symbolic. You know, there was a part in the dream where I've invited the early date in and said, oh, by the way, I don't know this guy either, but he's just arrived and he's James Bond. And then they of course start competing for me, as men have a habit of doing even in real life. And I'm like, what's going on? I've got these 2 men I don't know. One's famous and one's some schmuck I've invited to my home. Wasn't my home in the dream either. It was some kind of weird bungalow, like ground floor, like apartment, like a motel almost. It was odd. And then I've invited these men, I don't even know them, and what am I doing? And I'm running around kind of freaking out in the dream. I didn't write that part down in my rendering of the dream this morning, but it was really major freak out. And you know what was funny about it is I would do that in real life. I'd be running around going, what the fuck, I need to have a shower. And then at one point I go to the fridge and I open up the fridge and there's Like ham in the top shelf, I would never bring ham or pork into my fridge. Never. I mean, occasionally salami slips through if I order it on pizza, but I never deliberate, well, it is deliberate when I bring the pizza home, but you know what I mean. I don't bring ham or pork products into my home usually. So I open the fridge and there's this big fucking ham that's already been sliced at in the top shelf, and the Jewish guy's looking at me going, is there anything kosher to eat? And I go, yes, there's kosher food, don't eat that, it's treif. And it was actually quite comical because it's something I would do, like in real life. That's exactly how I'd react. And then James Bond is like, oh, well, it looks like a very nice ham. I really don't see the problem. And of course he wouldn't, because he's not Jewish, I don't think. I don't know. He might be. But anyway, in the dream it was like really almost comical. But then in the second shelf there were more kinds of meat. And on the bottom shelf I'm frantically looking for things that I can feed my date, you know, something nice that's kosher or reasonably kosher, like at least not complete treif. And treif being pork or shellfish or pig products. So treif means forbidden food. So anyway, I pull out this big slab, what just looked like a giant fucking, actually thinking about it, it actually looked like a giant bloody placenta. It was enormous, like a big hunk of liver. It was revolting. And I just very calmly sit it on top of my lap, resting on the top of my thighs and, you know, on my pelvis. And I'm just sort of half squatting with this hunk of oozing bloody meat oozing all over my dress. I think I had a white dress on in the dream too. It's very fucking symbolic, people of Earth, because I no longer have a uterus. Certainly won't be delivering any placentas any time ever again, unless I get, dear goddess, reincarnated as a female on this planet again. Oh, spare me, God, spare me. But anyways, but in the dream I'm very sanguine and calm and just, oh look, I'm in a bit of a mess now. There was blood oozing. And Daniel Craig, or James Bond, looks at me like it was the most normal thing in the world and nothing to be at least concerned about. And the Jewish guy's still worried about, is there anything kosher to eat? So I've got this hunk of meat on my lap and I'm pointing to the, yes, grab that, you can have that, that's all kosher. And like it was the most normal thing in the world. And then James Bond says, I think you need to go and have a shower now, Tanya. You wanted to wash your hair anyway. And I kind of had to because I'm dripping in kind of blood that's not my own blood. It's from this slab of meat. Oh, it was revolting. That was the only thing horrifying about the dream. Everything else in the dream was actually quite lovely, apart from the nerves, having a, you know, nice man coming to presumably take me out on a date. Anyway, I'm standing in the kitchen as well, and it looked like my kitchen when I was a teenager in our house in Island Bay, and it was chaotic. There was mess everywhere, a bit like what my jeweler's bench looks like right now. I need to actually, yes, discipline myself and tidy everything I'm not using away because it's very cluttered at the moment. But anyway, the you want to see the chaos? It's probably why I'm dreaming about cluttered kitchens. It's all very chaotic at the moment. But anyway, so it's all good. I know why everything's there and it's purposeful, but I do need to sort my shit out. Anyway, I'm looking at this kitchen, and I get very, like, this seeping wound of loathing comes over me because I realise it's my stepfather, Uncle Case's kitchen. Well, we lived with him, so it was his home technically. Although it was our home because we lived with him. But, you know, it was this feeling of masculine proprietary and ownership. So I turned, and it wasn't, the weird thing, it wasn't the house, it was some other apartment. But I turned to these two visiting men, and I go, oh, by the way, this is not my chaos, this is not my mess, it belongs to my stepfather. And then very lucidly, because I can feel myself slipping into a real trauma state in the dream, and I had prayed last night before I went to sleep. I said, dear God, you know, it's the Christmas season when I get triggered. Can you please, for the love of all the gods, not send me any more? It's a bit weird asking God in the name of all the gods, but, you know, oneness, it's all interconnected, people of Earth. Can you please not send me, a trauma dream tonight, because I need to guard my mind, I need respite. So what does the Holy One do? Sends me this lovely romantic dream about these two men competing over me sexually and being actually very courtly and gentlemanly and respectful and sweet. And I'm like, oh, how lovely. And then it shifts to this kitchen scenario with me looking at this kitchen. And I actually said lucidly in the dream, we're not doing this. We're not slipping into that time frame. We're in the current space-time, and I'm not going to be traumatized from my childhood today. And I kind of pulled myself in quite lucidly in the dream. So what do? The spirits, or whoever's, what part of my brain is defragmenting in the dream state, sends me to open the fridge and put this meat on my lap. But that meat literally looked like the shape of a woman's pelvis, sort of like that shape going down, you know, or it could be a man's pelvis too, almost like a butterfly shape plonked on mine. I guess like a placenta when you open it out. It was very fucking symbolic. I'm a bit freaked out about it, to be honest. Not scared or frightened, but just observing, like the imagery that is shown to me is just so profound. So anyway, the Jewish guy that my date is whining, where's the kosher food? I can't eat any of this. So I'm not giving you any of that. I'm not eating it either. I don't even know why it's in my fridge. But it makes sense, because I'd said, this isn't my kitchen, it's my stepfather's. And he would have had ham, especially at Christmas, in the fridge. So it's kind of going over those emotions of, you know, cultural identity and shifting from the abuse dynamic of my childhood. Not that having ham in the fridge was abuse, people of Earth. It was just, you know, Christmas, and that's what people who celebrate Christmas do. They eat ham. But anyway, ironically, God help the pigs, literally. But anyway, pigs are not kosher, by the way, because they're the closest thing to tasting like human flesh you can get. Ask anyone from the Pacific Islands. It's handed down in the law that pig tastes like human. Back from, you know, way back when they used to be cannibals and eat humans, so they actually know what humans taste like. Gross when you think about it, isn't it? But anyway, that's kind of part of the reason, I think, apart from the biblical injunctions, why pig meat is not kosher. Also, pigs are lovely animals. They're sweet and affectionate and docile, except if they're a wild boar, of course. But, you know, domesticated pigs are quite sweet and docile. Noisy, very noisy. When I had a horse as a teenager, the farmer kept pigs for a while. God, they were noisy. Oh, winking loudly, dozens of them. Anyway, I digress. So in the dream, Daniel Craig says to me, you wanted to wash your hair, Tanya, now you kind of need to have a shower, wash all that meat off. And I said, yes. So I went, but I said to him, even in the dream, I'm still partially lucid, because I would say that in real life. I said, I actually don't feel comfortable having a shower with two strange men in my home. I'm really weird about body autonomy and body privacy and not feeling kind of invaded or predated on. So, I mean, I will shower if I need to, but, you know, I even got predated when I was in hospital after my hysterectomy by a male fucking nurse coming in and staring at me. I said, "What are you doing staring at me?" He says, "I've got to make sure you don't fall down." But he was actually looking me up and down, my whole body, you know, the scars where they'd done the, you couldn't see a lot because it was all done. And it was all done internally, going up through the vagina. But he was just looking at all my fucking stretch marks and, you know, my very swollen belly, which was reacting to having a hysterectomy and a bladder repair and the walls of the vagina hitched up because of the prolapse. I mean, it was a really full-on operation. And here's this fucking creep just leering at me. And I just, you know what I did? I went, "Go and get me a towel. Do something useful." Snapped at him. And he got such a shock because he didn't expect me, because I was like barely able to stand. I was actually a bit dizzy and struggling to shower myself. But he was so surprised that I took charge of the situation, because I could see he was like getting some kind of sexual frisson. Who gets a sexual frisson about a woman post-surgery with all her flubbering and all her belly hanging and looking actually quite revolting? Some dirty, depraved motherfucker who happens to be a registered nurse was getting some kind of sexual sadistic frisson from it. So I said, "Get out, get my towel." He did. He came running back with my towel in 5 minutes. "I have to stand here and watch you." I said, "No, you don't. I've finished now." I tell you what, I finished that shower so fast, it was unbelievable. Normally I take quite long showers. I like to luxuriate in the shower. I like to, you know, methodically wash everything and enjoy the water. Anyway, I came out, and the woman in the ward, who happened also to be a nurse educator, older woman, she looked at me and she nodded. She could see exactly what had happened, you know. He didn't touch me, but it was still violating, you know. She said, "That was so clever of you to make him go for a towel, Tanya." I said, "I tell you," I said, "even though I can hardly stand up and I'm weak and I was struggling with, my bladder was not responding to the intervention at all. I had very bad bladder issues when I was in hospital. I thought I might die of that alone." I said, "Even though I'm very weak and dizzy," I said, "I swear to God, if that fucking happened to be Chinese," which is nothing about race, it's just about misogyny and being a man. I said, if that fucking Chinese nurse had laid a hand on me, I said, I think I would have murdered him, weak as a kitten as I am. And the nurse educator lady, she was actually Maori. She looked at me, she said, "Yes, I saw the blood in your eye." And she said, I could see that. She said, "And don't you worry," she said, "I think he realised too when you said, 'Go and get the towel,' that you were ready to fucking kill him." She said, "My husband's coming soon. I'm going to tell him what happened." I said, "Don't bother. They won't protect me." They didn't. Not protected in the hospital system. That's why I avoid going, if at all possible, unless I have some massive stroke or massive fucking heart attack and I'm unconscious and can't. So don't take me to hospital. Let me die. I won't be going, people of Earth. I've made up my mind. I'm done. I'm done with the systemic abuse. So anyway, so quite rightly in the dream, I'm saying, I don't want to be in the shower and, you know, with two strange men in my apartment. And Mr. Crow politely says, no, you go, you have your shower. I'll entertain your date and everything will be fine. I'm making a nice cup of tea. It was very British and polite and sweet. So anyway, I go in the dream, I come out of the shower, and the two men have befriended each other, and it turns out in the dream, they turned to me and they said, "Did you know that we're both Freemasons?" And I just look at them and I go, "Oh, that's interesting," but I'm actually just relieved that they've befriended each other and that they're not competing over me sexually and being all heckled and aggressive and weird with each other. And I felt more comfortable with James Bond than I did with the date for some reason. I think because he was kind and calm and soothing and took charge of the situation. So it was a very, very strange dream, but ironically, quite a happy one, apart from the weirdness about the meat and getting blood all over myself. Well, the symbology of that, the blood, the meat that looked like a placenta being rested on, I rested it on myself, on my pelvis and thighs, is about rebirthing and pushing out the residue of a former birth and just letting it all fucking go, people of Earth. Today is the first Boxing Day that I will be completely alone. Jared, my friend Jared, who's like a brother to me, usually spends Boxing Day with me traditionally every year, or has done for the last 10 years or so, but he had to work today, and I haven't heard from him at all, and I'm not upset about that because I realise he's exhausted. It's hot, very hot, and he works very hard, doing like a very demanding, physically demanding job now. So, I'm not going to bother him. It's not my holiday. I don't need to be all vexed and control drama and uptight about fucking Christmas and Boxing Day. But it's just, I feel today a little bit sad, because every Christmas there's some kind of acting out which happened already in response to a dream I posted early this month. So I've decided to not go dancing today. I'm not supporting that person being savage. I realise it's just her own acting out with Christmas, and I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to, have a cold war over it. But by the same token, it's a bit nasty when people try to pull me up on my own dreamscapes, which are not in my control. Like I admit when I'm lucidly directing the dream, but I can't control what dreams come to me or how they manifest completely. Otherwise, I wouldn't dream ever again, people of Earth. It'd be a lot less stressful at times. But it's how my spirit guides, my angels, my wise ones, my muses, my gods communicate with me. It's sometimes very life-saving for me too. I get, sometimes on rare occasions, precognitive dreams that give me a kind of a, if not exactly in every detail, give me a kind of a hint into which direction my life is going, and which people were going to turn rancid that I thought were friends, which happens with monotonous regularity. It's been a long history of that. And it kind of gives me a bit of I get a feel for the zeitgeist, what's happening in our, our world or our community. And it can be quite healing and soothing and a little bit protective at times. So although I did pray and ask for protection to not have any massive trauma dreams last night, the dream still went to a kind of a psychosexual kind of a dark place, brought up that memory of my adolescence and reminders of my childhood, and especially at this time of year, which were always the worst. It's my family thought that giving gifts meant somehow you owed them in other ways. It was really foul and dishonouring and ugly. And anyway, don't want to go there. I don't want to go there because it's a long time ago and I don't need to live in that consciousness anymore. But it's interesting how I see the acting out on the part of other women, friends and other associates. So I'm conscious that, I'm not the only one that gets triggered at Christmas, a holiday that's meant to celebrate the birth of a spiritual avatar and, someone that was supposed to bring peace on earth but instead that religion got subverted also into all sorts of heinous ugliness, colonizations, raping, torture of children, constant predation. So, you know, for me, there is no holy land, there is no true sacred space, although I create it in my own home and garden, because that's where I draw the line in the sand, people. You shall not cross like the Balrock. I'll cast you down into the fucking abyss if you do. So I've had a very spiritual morning, posting that dream, which ended after they announced that they were both Freemasons, and I said, that's interesting. And then I woke up and I thought that makes perfect sense why they were such respectful, decent, honouring, kind men to me. Probably could pick up on my level of trauma and knew not to oppress, suppress, depress, compress, or other ways press on. But the Tanya, who can be a bit, you know, emotionally triggered at this time of year, but even in the dream state, they were very kind. And Daniel Craig in the dream, a man I don't even know in real life, was very, not fatherly, because he seemed to me to be similar in age to me. I think he's younger than me though, probably in his 50s. But anyway, he just seemed to be taking on a more fathering, as a nurturing, fathering role, and mentoring and trying to help me with this date who had arrived way too early. So it was a very strange situation to be in. But it's the kind of wacky thing that actually used to happen to me in real life, you know. So it kind of all wasn't quite so strange and nonsensical as at first glance it might appear. So then I had a message from Spirit just after I posted a story about Pippi Longstocking, about the author writing that as a antidote to fascism and Nazism, which makes perfect coherent sense, and was quite a wonderful story. And yes, I had similar attributes to little Pippi Longstocking. I still have, actually. I really hate bullies and oppressors and fascists and Nazis and people who want to turn, you know, people's lives to shit when life is already very precarious and fraught for most people anyway, without that constant seeping evil, you know. So I was just thinking that, and then the song popped into my head, Added Up by Violent Femmes. And initially I thought it was Kiss Off, which is one of my favourite songs. So I posted the link to Kiss Off. And then I realised, no, that's not right. Day After Day is the beginning of another song. So I had to Google it, and it was right. It's Added Up. Wow. The messages in the lyrics of that song alone were just so profound. It sat me on my ass for a little bit. And anyway, I did amend it, the link on my Facebook, and post it at the risk of looking like an insane person, because it's my communication with the spirits. They want me to pass that message on, or what have you. Who am I to argue? I'm in service to the goddess, the gods, and all manifestations of holiness. And they're really speaking to me today quite profoundly through the dream state, through Jungian synchronicities like the Pippi Longstocking story being regurgitated to me again. It's about the second or third time I've read about it in the past few weeks. And then no sooner I posted it, hearing day after day I get angry and something. Anyway, I was like, that is so fucking profound. So what does it mean in the broad scheme of things? Really, nothing. The Mama T is alone in her sacred space garden with her beautiful little birdie boys. It looks like we're going to get storms and rain today, and I'm going to choose to be happy no matter what, no matter who. And the spirits have asked me to remind my enemies, some of whom do lurk and slip through sidewind and come to my YouTube channel. Not many, the majority of my subscribers, I'm sure, are quite lovely, supportive, sweet people who gain some kind of ennoblement or encouragement from my rather weird thought processing stories and dreams. But there are a few who I'm conscious do lurk, and I'm not afraid of them because I don't know why. I'm not afraid. I guess the aging process. And no one had the right in the first instance to abuse me as a child. No one had the right in the second and third and fourth instances. For example, that nurse at the QE2 hospital being inappropriate. No one has the right to destroy me, particularly when I'm at my most vulnerable post-surgery. That happened more than once, people of Earth. So by the time that happened, the last time that happened, the Mama T went into full-blown Bodhisattva war. And how was that handled? The QE2 destroyed my patient file records, 15 years of patient records, which was an evil beyond words. So I'm conscious that I do have people in Queensland Health who are enemies of me. It's why they keep withholding proper dental treatment and shuffling me off and making me out to be crazy or worthless, or, putting me down as a difficult patient when all I've done is show up and ask for treatment for the love of all the gods. That kind of thing. To the point where my psychiatrist actually had to intervene more than once and help me with proper treatment because I wasn't able to get it in the public system. It's it's just a form of genocide, and most people were too undereducated or in denial or frightened to hold to their truth to even bring it to that full comprehension and cognition. But the Tanya lives in denial and shrinks and hides from no man, no woman or child, or even, dare I say it, the occasional God that floats through from time to time. Only a fool would dare fuck with me, basically because be all and end all, basically. I am flawed like any other human. I'm not perfect, but I'm a good person and I try to do right by people. I try to be honourable and have integrity, and I've struggled missing out in love because of my integrity, but it's the right thing to do. And the kinds of souls that would try to fuck with me and destroy me because I held my line and I stayed true to myself and I stayed true to God and the gods, and I fought for myself, by myself, with myself, of myself, all my life, only to have daughters abandon me and close friends turn against me, or with circumstances beyond their control, be unavailable to spend quality time with me. And it hurts, the price that I've paid for standing in my own honour, and in particular the last 5 years fighting against the COVID regime. I've got nothing to be ashamed of. I held my line at great personal cost, including receiving safe, respectful dental treatment, and even having my skin cancers treated. I haven't received treatment for that because I'm not prepared to pay a fortune in money that I can't afford, you know. I'll have to address that when things start opening up again in January, because the skin cancers are flaring up and a bit out of control, people of Earth. And I've run around with this cracked, broken tooth since July. Yes, it was July when it finally snapped. Because I don't have pain in it. It's a dead tooth. I don't actually care. But, you know, needs really should have been sealed off and patched over and fixed, because it's a gateway for bacteria. It's probably why I've been feeling very fatigued and emotionally a bit scattered and flying in all directions, because I'm just an open wound at the moment, really, in more ways than one, darlings. But yeah, I don't have pain in that, but I'm more concerned about the cancers on my back that have been niggling at me, which is a sign that they have to go. Right, so yes, what was I saying? Oh yes, Spirit reminded me, only a fool would fuck with me, because at 60 and a half now, I've survived everything and everyone that ever tried to kill me, including people that I thought, believed, trusted, loved me. You've taken everything away from me. You've cost me my money, homes, my daughters, my health, my safety, even my pets. And even if I were either to die of skin cancer or some other illness that I haven't anticipated, or God's forfend, I was finally murdered by some fucking maniac, there is no real death in real terms. I know I've been vomited back by the gods to this planet 16 times. The 16th wasn't really a near-death experience, but it was just a shock to see how close it could have been. My head split open instead of my upper arm. But, you know, the other near-deaths were real and very confronting, actually, and reminded me each time, even as a very young child, that there's no escape from planet hellscape for me. I'm forced to live it out to its penultimate conclusion, however that manifests. And it's intense, people, because there's many times that I have actually not actively wanted to be here, because it's just been so isolating and othering and putrid and vicious and sadistic. But, you know, one by one, over time, I've alienated myself from the sadistic people, and it came as a great shock when I found out how rotten and evil they really were after what I thought was quite genuine love they poured into me for quite long periods of time, some of them. It's amazing how people can turn on a dime like that for no logical reason that makes any sense to my mind, or quite frankly anyone else's mind, just because, you know, they align with the current regime, the current zeitgeist. And it's evil, and it's perverted, and it's sadistic. And I choose not to align with that regime. And it puts me in a rather precarious position, because I'm alone and isolated now, which is probably was the long game plan they were aiming for all along. Isolate me, alienate me, impoverish me, keep me in a state of post-traumatic stress syndrome, and then ultimately kill me. So some of them that still come probably to look on my channel out of morbid curiosity or schadenfreude must be a bit disappointed that, in spite of the Bondi terrorist attack, which put a great big dampener on all the Hanukkah celebrations and reignited that existential sense of threat for people who are Jewish or of Jewish cultural affiliation at the very least, I had a very good Hanukkah in spite of that, maybe to spite it. I lit the candles every night, as I do at Hanukkah time anyway. Hanukkah's celebrating victory over oppression, and I've lived that way since I was a very, very young child. Victory over oppression. So that holiday, although it's a minor festival, is deeply symbolic for me as a soul and as a woman and as a shaman, as a Jew and as a witch. Victory over those who would destroy me for my mere femaleness, and for my mind, and for my courage, and for my defiance. Fuck you. You failed. I get to laugh at you again. So she who laughs last laughs loudest, longest, and best, and uproariously and joyously. It's a beautiful thing, people of Earth. It really is. Right, we're 42 minutes in, so yes, I'll break it up. It's too long to add a story to the end of that story. So I'll call this Boxing Day musings and dreamscapes and leave it at that, and I'll come back with a story. To those who do love me, do respect me, do care about my survival on this planet, I know who you are, and you're the reason I'm still alive, actually, grudgingly at times. I know. I've been determined at times. But my soul has consistently chosen life, even though it made no coherent sense given the circumstances I found myself in at the time, and it's a bit miraculous. So, to you, my beloved ones who do love me, and to you who come to my channel and support me, thank you for your likes, for your comments, for your subscribing. I realise that I'm quite weird and strange and a bit confronting at times, because I won't shrink and hide from the truth of my own lived reality and my own lived experiences, or the truth of what's happening to our planet. I won't and I can't. And the only way you will ever get me to be silent and complicit with it will be when I eventually shuffle off this mortal coil, and my voice will then no longer be heard except for these memories left behind of me on my YouTube channel. And that would depend, of course, if YouTube kept my channel going, which I very much doubt. So eventually, yeah, I will blip off this 3D reality stream of consciousness, time continuum, and my voice will no longer be emanating from this thrice strangled voice box, and I'll be voiceless but not soundless, because I'll be in the ever-loving arms of the Ein Sof Or, from which I probably would still be able to reach the ones I love and whisper in their ear from time to time words of love and comfort and encouragement and motivation, and remind you all that you must never give up, you must never quit, you must never yield, and you must never cede to the dark demons that breed sadism and hate in these holy times. You must hold your own line. You must stand in dignity and pride. You must dance amongst the Sephirot like a whirling dervish. I love you all. Bye.